Hi, my name is Bert Stephani. I'm a professional photographer from Belgium and I'm making this little video because I was lucky enough to get my hands on a prototype of the long-awaited Fujifilm 56mm F1.2. It is a prototype and because it's completely new, I thought I'd share my opinions about it with you. I know it's a lot of people are waiting for this lens, so I thought I'd share what I found about it with you. Now, just to be completely sure, yes, I am a Fuji X photographer, and yes, I've been working with Fujifilm on a couple of projects. In fact, that's the reason why I got my hands on this prototype, because I've been asked to test this lens out and take some sample pictures for Fujifilm with this lens. But other than that, my opinions are my own. I'm not being paid by Fujifilm to make this review or whatever it is. So these are my opinions and they're based on a prototype, so not the final version of the lens. So some things might be a bit different with the final version or even better. So keep in mind this is about the prototype. A 56mm lens is the equivalent of about an 85mm lens on a full frame camera, and this is like the classic portrait lens, and because it's so fast, 1.2, that's what people are waiting for. At least that was what I was waiting for in the Fuji lineup, because has been a bit of a gap when it comes to portrait lenses in the Fuji lens lineup. It's an excellent range of lenses, but we were missing this one. We had the 62.4, which is optically a great lens, but it's a bit slow in focusing, and it's only 2.4, only 2.4. But for a prime, I kind of want something a little bit faster than that. The 1855 at 55 is only f4, so that again is maybe not enough to give you that shallow depth of field or to work in really low light. The 55-200 is a great longer lens, but again it is a bit slow aperture wise. It's also pretty big and heavy in the whole small system, so this was really the lens I was waiting for. An 85, so that's a slight tele lens, which is perfect to compress the image a bit, to get the background out of focus without any distortion, so that's really great for portraiture, and at 1.2 it is really fast. If we take a closer look to this lens, we see that the design is pretty much in the same style as the other Fujifilm prime lenses. No surprises here, and why change things if they're good. The lens is a bit bigger, of course, than a 35 or another lens, because it has that large aperture, but it's not heavy in any way, and it's still pretty compact. I've used it mainly on the XE2. And it balances pretty nicely on the XE2. I also tried it on the X Pro 1, and then it looks just perfectly fine. Sits really well in the hand, so no problem there. A nice improvement is that the aperture ring and the focus ring got a bit stiffer. There's a bit more friction if you move them, which is, in my opinion, an improvement, because with the previous lenses it was a bit too easy to change aperture or to focus really manually, to focus really very precisely. So I think that's an improvement, and I'm definitely looking, I hope that it will be in the final version too, but I think so. The lens comes with a plastic lens hood, sunshade, so that fits pretty easily, makes the lens a bit bigger, but it also protects your lens a bit. In my opinion, it's also a very good thing to put it on anyways. When I test equipment, I usually do it in like a total immersion way, which means that I'm taking it with me everywhere, and I shoot anything and everything with it, just to get a good feel of it. I'm not like resolution charts or measurement shooter. I just want to get a good feel of it, and you only get that from using the lens in actual situations. So I took a lot of pictures with it before I did a real shoot with this lens, and that's really a very good way to find out how it is like. And what I found out is that it is incredibly sharp. Even at 1.2 it's perfectly sharp. Colors are great, contrast is great. There's a little bit of lens flare if you shoot straight into the sun wide open, but that's to be expected. I don't think any lens can get rid of that, but the lens flare you get at least is pretty good looking. It's beautiful. So that lens optically works really well. Also the autofocus is really fast and confident, so there's no problem there. It's much faster than the 60mm, I think. So in practice I had no problem at all with this lens, even though it's just a prototype, but it worked flawlessly, really. I already said that I used it mainly in combination with the XE2. That should theoretically gives you a better image quality, because there's this lens optimizer thing inside the XE2, and it's also because the face detection sensors in this camera, it should also make for a faster autofocus. But I also used it on the X Pro 1, and to be honest I didn't see too much of a difference, so it works perfectly fine on X Pro 1. Maybe it's a bit faster, just a bit better on the XE2, but if you're still shooting with an XE1 or an X Pro 1 or an XM1, I'm sure this lens is going to perform just as well, so no problem whatsoever there. After I got a bit of a feel for this lens, and I think that's important, I went out and I did a little shoot with my kids. Here are some images of my 3 kids separately. Converted them to black and white because I'm a big black and white fan. I also took a couple of pictures of them together, and we even ended up making our New Year's card with this camera during this shoot. So Happy New Year for all of you. I also did a model shoot with Stephanie, who's a model that I've worked with before, just to see how this lens would perform, and I never felt the need to change lenses or whatever, so it's just beautiful, fast, easy to work with. So for this shoot we went to a train station, and outside the train station we shot our first images. You can see the images unedited and edited, so you get a feel for what comes out of the camera in RAW and what comes out after I process them in Lightroom. So then we moved on to this little hallway, because I really liked the fluorescent lights in the background to use as a background. It was a bit cold, and we liked the jacket more, so we switched to different clothing. Again, you can see the RAW files and then the processed versions. So we then moved on to the place where people can park their bicycles, because there was some really nice light coming from the side, and took some pictures there. RAW file, edited one. And then I included a bit of a out of focus foreground element to create a bit more depth, a bit of a feeling in this image. And then we used a frontal soft light coming from straight in front of her. Works always well with a female face with beautiful eyes. And then we so this whole line of lights, and I tried to do something with that. Light on her wasn't really beautiful, but just something to play around with. Then we moved to a more open area with lots of light. It was really cold, but Stephanie was a trooper, standing there in a sleeveless dress like that. A RAW file, and this is how I edited. So you see there's usually not much editing going on, because the files are just so great, just coming straight out of the camera, and the JPEGs look even better than the RAW files, so very little work on these images. Some more just taking some closer images. We then moved outside, but our light was pretty much gone, going into the fields near my house. Not very pretty light, but we managed at least a simple shot. I kind of like it for some kind of reason. And then we moved to the runway of the airport to work with the lights from the runway. So here you can see the lights in the background, but we had to get up a bit higher to get them in the background. It was still pretty light, so I had to underexpose a bit to work with the autofocus lights. As you can see, with a bit of work, they look much better. This is all Lightroom, by the way, no Photoshop. I've only used this lens for about a week, but I'm already completely sure that I will order one as soon as it is available on the market. Because to me that really is the missing link in the Fujifilm lineup. The lens is sharp, has good color contrast, it's fast in autofocusing, it's easy to work with, so to me that's like a perfect portrait lens, and there's no reason not to have it in my bag, basically. So that completes my my basic setup for my Fuji X cameras. So from now on, I think the zooms will stay in the backup bag, and for most of the jobs it will be just this lens, the 35 and the 14. I can do pretty much everything with these three lenses, maybe with the X100S on the side. So that gives me a lot of options, so I'm really very happy about this lens. I hope you enjoyed this little video, and see you next time.